So let's talk about the last one. The last one was the other big set of announcements, related, I guess, to AI, but not a core AI story, and probably slightly controversial. So, and that's all about what Workday is trying to do. So, if you want to tee that one up.
Yes. So last week I was at the Workday Innovation Summit, fantastic event they put out in the San Francisco area every year. And this year, one of the big focus areas that CEO Carl Eschenbach brought up was about wanting to establish Workday as an enterprise platform. Of course, Workday is known as an HR solution. They were also have broken $1 billion in revenues in financials at this point. So they kind of have this ERP-like positioning. But they say that they sell to kind of this trio of people. One is the chief HR officer, obviously. Second, with financials, the CFO. And then they say that they also sell into the CIO. And they're trying to set up themselves as being seen more as an SAP or Oracle, not in terms of being an old dinosaur, but in terms of being a programmatic uh, platform. But I don't think that Workday is seen that way right now, right? So I think there's this interesting challenge of trying to figure out what is an actual IT platform or an enterprise platform at this point, and who really qualifies for that. And so everybody wants to be a platform, but what's it mean to actually be a platform?
So I'll start with a couple caveats. The first is I do not cover HR systems at all, so I've
Me
never
neither.
had any yeah. So no deep involvement with Workday, and I don't blame them because you're right. Everyone is trying to be a platform. I don't blame them from trying to go there, and I think they overall directionally it's the right move. I think that their sort of closed approach to things, their our way
Mhm.
or the highway sort of model of the past
Yes.
has not served them well. We are in an era, and we have been actually in an era where it's all about being able to play nicely in the playground and connect with everybody and work with everybody. And they've been sort of that outlier around that. And so I think all those are positive. They need to be. This is the right direction for them to be going. That said, I think they have an incredibly difficult road ahead of them. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling yourself a platform and saying you're open and using that to signal that we are playing nicely and that we are connecting and we are going to become more API centric. And if it's signaling, more power to them. If they're truly trying to compete in the platform wars and becoming one of the core enterprise platforms, I think they, I'm not going to, I never count anybody out, but that's a very difficult road for them to play. And here's the biggest reason. To me, there's two core definitions of the platform. First and foremost, I have to be building something on top of you, right?
Mhm.
I have to be building some layer that exists, whether that's I'm plugging in partners or I'm more likely building it directly. That has to be a core part of it. And secondly, it has to be this sort of part of the core operating business. And
Mhm.
so that we've talked a lot here about the fact that the fundamentals of transformation, the fundamentals of AI that sits on top of transformation is data and business process. And while clearly they are process oriented around the processes that they support, and clearly they have data around those, these aren't core business process, these aren't core data that are the things that a business actually operates on, right? That's the behind the wall kind of stuff. It's back office functionality. And you could try to make the case sort of around like what ServiceNow does as an example. And ServiceNow obviously has an HR
Mhm.
component and a financial component. But my argument would be is that ServiceNow entire model and others of that ilk are about the underpinnings that actually cause an organization to run, and HR and finance just happen to be part of that, but it's this much broader take. And what I didn't see in that announcement is anything that actually helps me go there, right?
Mhm.
Anything that helps me go to that broader place. And I'm not even sure that that would be the right move for them. So that's sort of my take. I think it's all the right signaling, all the right directional stuff, but I would not be considering them a major part of the kind of platform architecture of an enterprise.
Yeah, I find that Workday has done. I feel like they've done a good job maintaining a consistent data layer. So like ServiceNow, they will refactor apps to fit into a standard platform. As an internal platform, it works very well for maintaining updating capabilities. But it has not been an open platform to the same extent that ServiceNow is. When we look at ServiceNow, we can probably point at 100, maybe even more software solutions that are built on top of the ServiceNow platform that are not ServiceNow. Like I cover a company called Brightfin that does IT expense management. They are built on the ServiceNow platform, and they are literally a separate ISV. And Workday can't say the same thing about its data model and capabilities. And although Workday has this extend application development capability in place, it's not widely used. It's not ABAP or any of the. It's not an SAP or Oracle or Microsoft programming construct that is well known to the developer world, and those are real technical challenges that exist. I know there are business partner challenges as well, but I'm not a super big expert on HR and finance partners and channels, so I'm not going to go deep into what that means from a business creation perspective. But I know that from a technical perspective, having the data layer is important, but you need developers at the end of the day. It was like Steve Ballmer yelling developers, developers, developers. And as over the top as he was correct about that assumption that without developers, you do not have a platform at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think one of the things that, because I have, well, not closely, I have followed Workday, because they were one of the first, born in the cloud kind of
Yeah.
players, and that
Mhm.
whole approach, and part of their whole pitch was that they were built for HR and exclusively for HR. It wasn't this sort of add-on thing, and that's what worked for them. But it's also now what is working against them, if they are now trying to broaden that, because that's their entire foundation, and it's really hard. And you could, I guess you could say the same thing about Salesforce. They started, it was all about the sales, but I think Benioff always had much broader ambitions. He pivoted off that pretty quickly, expanded, lots of focus on the data layer, all those things that Workday
Yes.
never did. And so, I think you could look at it and say that Workday could follow that path, but that's a decade long path, right? That's not
Yes.
something that's going to happen overnight. So
And although it seems like the Salesforce Informatica rumors have fallen apart, despite that, uh,
shocker.
yes, despite that, there's no real doubt that Salesforce takes data seriously. They still have MuleSoft, they still have Tableau, they still do master data management, and they are a data layer that a lot of companies build apps on and around. And that's the challenge for a company like Workday to try to create a similar infrastructure after ignoring it and still scaling to the level that they're at. It's hard to rebuild the plane on the fly while you're trying to land it.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think it's, directionally it's all the right things. So from that standpoint, I applaud them. I think probably if I'd been advising them, I probably would have said, hey, maybe you don't go with the platform language right out the gate. You build a little momentum over a year or two of putting some of this in place. But it's easy
Mhm.
to Monday morning quarterback that.
Yes.
It's it's what they need to do. And I think they, as long as they are moderating their ambitions, and frankly make sure they don't alienate their core customer base as they do so, then I think it's all upside for them.
Yeah, but bring it full circle. I think the platform approach is important because as we think about AI, we're thinking about everything from training data to models development to the data used to augment models, all the way to outputs to tuning and then to ongoing management. And if you don't own every piece of that, it makes it really hard to really or have control of each part of it, either as uh, internally built or as an open source and transparent piece of the puzzle. It's hard to move forward, and I think a lot of companies are going to run into those dead ends and roadblocks head on in the next year or two.
Well, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, anybody who goes out there into the market and says we are the enterprise platform is blowing smoke and drinking too much of their marketing Kool-Aid, right? The only way you truly do this as an enterprise is to do it yourself. I remember talking to Phil Donahoe, the am I saying his name right? The former CEO of ServiceNow, and this was at the time Salesforce was making a lot of news. SAP at the time was making more noise about the being an enterprise platform. And so I asked him this question, and he says, "Oh, there's plenty of room for all these platforms."
Mhm.
And I thought it was sort of a cop out answer, but I think it was actually dead on. It was, the reality is I'm as a CIO, I'm going to pick two, maybe three of these major platforms that are going to be the foundation. And like today, Workday is not one of those. But I'm then going to have all the other parts that fit into my platform that I am building. That's the nature, the definition of a platform. That I have to have all the parts sit in there and fit and play nicely. They work together. And this is why where Workday is going is the right move, because if they want to have a place in that platform in the future, even if they never become the platform, if they want to be part of my platform, they need to be able to plug in. They need to be able to play nicely in the garden that I'm building here and having all these parts interconnect. And that's really what's happening is that I'm going to have, and if you're a large enterprise, you're going to have a whole bunch of these different, you're going to have ServiceNow, you're going to have
Mhm.
Salesforce, you're probably going to have SAP, you're going to have all these different platforms, and you're going to have them all connected. You're going to have a couple of tools that you weave everything together with,
Yes.
and everything has to sit on top. And then I'm going to build components on top of them that I'm going to then have to integrate and weave it together. And that then becomes what I call the transformational platform, right? This engine that actually powers the way my organization competes. And it's not any one. There's maybe if you're a really small company, but for any size, any company of any size, I'm going to have all these pieces that I have to assemble. And so, that's really what we're talking about. And that's where in the end this is all upside for Workday as long as they don't become over ambitious with what they're trying to do.
Yes, the monolith is dead. Long live platform integration and and the rise of more subsidiary and secondary platforms.
Exactly. Exactly.